Hi, so I thought I'd talk to you today about something a little bit controversial, which is the fact that I don't practice, I've never practiced and don't teach people to do scales or arpeggios. So those things that, I had to play as a kid doing exams, I didn't really practice them because, I don't know, I found that they caused me problems. So I'm a fluent pianist. So what that means for me is that I have an understanding of the structure of the keyboard and where all the sounds live, also a very strong sense of rhythmic structure. So when I would play a scale for my teacher when I was a child, I would play as if it were music, as if it were a tune. So if I was playing an A major scale, I'd probably play it something like this. Or if I wanted to change the style, I might go. But what you're hearing there is if you think about it, is a lot of rhythm. You're hearing digga 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 dum. So that rhythmic structure, first and foremost, is important for me to feel like I can play the piano. The actual structure of the scale itself is tricky because it's so linear. It can pull me out of the structure of the keyboard, which is, all about where the black keys are, the groups of 3 black keys and 2 black keys. 3 black keys and 4 white keys, 2 black keys and 3 white keys. So that's very important to me. So as I play a linear structure like a scale, it presents, a difficulty in a way, which is perhaps why scales were thought of as useful practice in the first place. I don't know, because people used to be more commonly fluent as musicians than they are today. Musicians these days tend to be more what I would call passive. So yeah, the difficulty of a scale is its linearity. But the trouble is that you can then not care where you are and just play it with muscle memory and actually not in the moment know exactly where your fingers are in the structure of the keyboard. Obviously, if you play very fast, that is one way of doing it, just from muscle memory. Personally, I like my fast scales to be structured. I like to know where I am. So that thing of playing the patterns, the rhythm pattern, also tended to make me change fingers. I would use fingering that was more rhythmic and less kind of like glued or pinned to the scale in a way that was just convenient. So for me, it was more useful to learn the kind of blocks of keys that scales were built on by improvising melodies, often over harmony, that would move around the scale all over the place, as it were. So that you're really exploring the keyboard. So for me, improvising over blocks of keys, which is a very different way of thinking than a linear scale that sort of goes from left to right or right to left, a block of keys that plugs into the keyboard map, as I call it, that's what I teach. And obviously it doesn't mean that I can't play scales, if I'm improvising. I can play scales. Probably more efficiently in some ways than if I practice scales from muscle memory, being able to put them into pieces. Because the scale passage work that appears in music very rarely falls, if you like, on those places in the hand, if you see what I mean. It's very rare that you're going to be able to always use that fingering that's taught. So consequently, I don't really practice scales at all. I just practice mapping the keyboard, knowing where you are in the keyboard and knowing where the sounds live. And actually, arpeggios would be more useful, but even those, they become too linear, They're a bit more musical in a way than the scale because the rhythm tends to take over. If you go, but if they go into fours, they're a bit different then, aren't they? The way that they lie in the keys. So again, that kind of mechanical, very linear, mechanical sort of way of practicing, it doesn't suit me. It makes me tense up. It makes me feel a bit lost in the keyboard. So yeah, I'd rather just improvise on chords across the whole keyboard, which again I think of as blocks of keys. So like a block of keys that are in the A flat arpeggio would be all the A flats, all the C's, and all the E flats. Then maybe do F minor. And then maybe do D flat. Then maybe do E flat. That kind of practice was very much what I did to help me sort of really become fluent. So linear scales and arpeggios, because I would practice that, because I would practice in the ways that I'm showing you, I could then pass my exams and play scales, although I did play them with the wrong fingerings and rather more like tunes, which my teacher didn't like. You know, if I sat down in the lesson and he'd say, play G minor melodic, and I'd go... and use any old finger and play it like a melody. He used to get a bit excited about this and tell me off and tell me I wasn't doing it right because he wanted that. I say I can't play it. That sort of way of playing where it's very sort of strict and lifting the fingers up high. He would often have the metronome on. Stiffened me up, made me not play well, made me not play musically. So that's why I don't teach scales, because they block fluency. They block two parts of fluency. They block knowing where we are in the structure of the keys because of their linear, the linear structure of the scale and always using the same fingering. So we lose the sense of the structure of the keys and how these tonal elements, I call them tonal blocks, how they plug into the keyboard. So we lose that. And the other problem is that we end up playing from muscle memory. So we don't even really necessarily know what we're playing, or, it's like I say, we don't know where we are. We don't care where we are, if you like, because the muscle memory kicks in when we play that way. So we're not really playing from our minds, not really playing from our body and souls. We're playing kind of mechanically, which doesn't work for me and doesn't work for most people that I've encountered to teach. Most students benefit from being more fluent, thinking of music as a language. So scales and arpeggios in that linear way that is normally taught, I don't do it. I don't practice that way. And that's why.